Today is April 15th, 2024, tax day, one of my favorite days of the year. And there's been an awful lot of news out there regarding realtors and lawsuits and class action and changing rules. And there's definitely been a lot of things in the public media that's kind of misleading. So I just wanted to talk about it real quick and let you know what's going on from my perspective. Obviously, I'm a real estate broker, and this is something I deal with every day. So as of sitting here today, nothing has legally changed. The rules have not really changed yet. In July of 2024, the thought is the final settlement will be approved by the judge and there will be some changes that happen. And admittedly, just to kind of go backwards a little bit, the way real estate is done is admittedly weird. This is the way it's been since I've been in the system. And I remember when I came on, I'm like, wait a minute, the seller is paying the buyer agent commission? Like, that's kind of weird. If we really break it down, the buyer is the one that's ultimately paying it with the funding of their loan. And the way we have it structured is that that cost is financed into the loan. It does come off the seller side of the balance sheet. So whenever a listing agent is working with a seller, they're paying a commission, whatever that is, and then a portion of that commission goes towards the buyer's agent commission. So yes, it's coming off the seller's side of the balance sheet, but ultimately when the loan funds, it's coming from the buyer's funds. So that's the way it's always been. And those commissions, the listing agent commission, and in fact the buyer agent commission, those have always been negotiable, but they really don't get negotiated that much. And that was one of the points of this lawsuit, is to add some transparency to that whole system, which I think if we fast forward a year from now, I think there will be more transparency, and I think it will be good for the business overall. There are a couple changes that are kind of being implemented already. So RMLS, which is the Regional Multiple Listing Service, never published the buyer's agent commission, the BAC as we call it. The buyer's agent commission has never been published to the public. It is always on the private remarks that the realtors can see, but it's never been published. So they are publishing that now. So if you go on Redfin or Zillow, you'll see the BAC there. So typically the BAC it usually is about 2.5%, sometimes a little bit higher, sometimes a little bit lower, but that's typically what it's been for years. So what we are doing as a company at Living Room is we are requiring all agents that are working with a buyer to have a buyer broker agreement. So this is a 2-page document that spells out the transparency of the BAC, spells out a little bit more about the relationship, and just codifies that relationship more. So basically, the way it is now, if somebody calls me and says, hey, I want to go look at this property, I have to sign a contract with them before we even go look at property, the same way you would sign a contract for a listing agreement. So that's something that's new. And again, I think that this is better for everybody involved because it makes all of our roles a lot more clear. The state of Washington has had this as a law for quite some time. It's been several years. And so right now, Living Room, we're doing it now, but statewide, the thought is that when the July settlement comes down, it'll be a statewide law as well. And again, I think that'll be a positive. Another thing that's likely to come down with the ruling in July is that once that time comes and goes, the BAC is no longer going to be able to be published on any multiple listing service. So when you're a buyer's agent and you're working with a buyer, you're not going to know if that listing is paying 0 or 2.5 or something in between. But it is totally possible for the listing agent to communicate that to all buyers that are showing the property. Why they're doing this exactly, I kind of still don't understand, because there's so many easy workarounds for the whole thing. So I don't know why they're doing it. It's just gonna make things a little bit more complicated. So the big question really is, what does this mean for consumers? So kind of a couple things. One, with me as a listing agent working with sellers, we're just gonna have to talk more about what kind of commission, if anything, is going to be offered up to the buyer's agent commission, to the buyer. So this is kind of a tough question because, I do listings and purchases, almost 50-50 down the middle for years. And one thing I can tell you for sure is that as a buyer, you really need a buyer's agent that's your fiduciary in your corner to get your sale closed, to negotiate on your behalf, to be that rock to help those make that roller coaster ride a lot easier. And also just financially, I mean, end up saving you a lot of heartache and a lot of money down the road. On the listing side, you really need a buyer's agent to have a negotiating partner. You need another professional on the other side who's not freaking out about the inspection report. So it really behooves the sellers to have a buyer's agent that is working on behalf of those buyers as a good negotiating partner. So hypothetically, if you have a seller that's unwilling to pay a buyer's agent commission, it's going to be very challenging to get them to bring a buyer to the table, because now that buyer is going to have to either pay for the buyer's agent commission directly out of pocket or find a clever way to finance it into the sale, which ultimately, I mean, it's the financing it into the sale is doable. We've done it before for years with like for sale by owner properties. That's something that has always come up, is how does the buyer's agent get paid? So it's doable, it's not impossible, but what it does is it really takes that buyer pool and just limits it down to the people that are willing to do that creative financing or willing to come out of pocket for it. So I mean, I don't, if I had to put a percentage on it, how many people are, I don't know, I guess at this point I can't put a percentage on it, but it just makes it the selling experience that much more complicated. So, you know, these are conversations that I haven't really had to have a whole lot of yet. But kind of thinking it through, the way I would pose it is, are we moving or not? Do you want to sell or not? And if you want to sell, it behooves you to widen that buyer pool and offer up a buyer agent commission. What does it mean from the buyer side of the equation? Well, it's just more conversations about how that buyer's agent is going to advocate for you, how we're going to deal with it in the event that we stumble upon a property that is offering no BAC, and how we're going to make that work. There's some affordability questions that come up, like, you know, is this going to pinch people out that are in those lower price points that can't afford to pay it? But even for the ones that are at the higher price points, it's, you know, it's a pretty penny, and that's going to be a hard thing to come off of. But my prediction is that the market has a wonderful way of working these things out. And this is just another element that needs to be worked out in a negotiation in the sale, just like any other thing, like a broken sewer line. So it's something we're all kind of learning how to communicate about it, learning how to advocate for the best for our clients. And I think that a year from now, when we fast forward, we're going to have it kind of all figured out, and it should be functioning just fine. And I think for the better. I think it's really good to have more transparency, more deep conversations about these things. And really for us realtors to really be forced to show our value more. I mean, I feel like I show my value in every transaction I do, but as a whole for our industry, I think it will be a net positive. This is a piece of it that is kind of interesting too, of what does it mean for prices? Are prices suddenly going to go down 2.5%? The short answer is, I don't think so. You know, there's all kinds of things that are in the comps. So when we're doing pricing for a listing, we're always looking backwards at the comparable sales to see what has sold in recent memory. And there's all kinds of costs and fees in those sales that we don't see. Repairs, concessions, things that are negotiated. So I don't think that as a whole, I don't foresee prices going down any. Now on any given property, if you have a challenging property on a busy street, something that's in poor condition, and those people are offering no BAC, yeah, that could be problematic, and yeah, the value of that individual property might go down. But I don't think we're going to see a percentage decrease in prices in Portland anytime soon. Portland still has all the dynamics of a very active market. We have low inventory, we have high demand. I don't think prices are going anywhere. So the elephant is in the room. We've been talking about it. I hope that all makes sense. If you want any more clarification, if you have any more specific questions, please feel free to give me a call. You're my client. I'm your advocate. I'm always here for you. Have a great day. And since we're on the subject of elephants in the room, let's talk for a second about my facial hair. It's kind of ridiculous right now. Every winter I grow a beard, and usually I'll shave it off about this time of year. But I watched Yellowstone a couple years ago, and Sam Elliott has got that insane mustache, and I want one so bad. I don't have the chin to pull it off though. So every year I kind of shave the beard off a little bit, grow out the cowboy stash a little bit. Some people love it, a lot of people hate it. My wife really doesn't like it. So I'm dealing with that right now too.